Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare.
Hari Om. We'll get started with the invocation prayers.
Sahana vavatu, sahanau bhunaktu, sahaviryam karavavahai, tejasvinavaditamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Gita Dhyanam. Om Parthaya Pratibodhitam Bhagavata Narayanena Swayam Yasena Graditam Purana Munina Madhye Mahabharatam Advaitamritavarshini Bhagavatim Ashtadashadhyayini Amba Tvamanusandharami Bhagavad-gite Bhavadvishini Namostute Vyasa Vishala Buddhi Pullaravindayata Patra Netra Yena Tvaya Bharata Talya Purnaha Prajwalito Jnanamaya Pradipaha Prapanna Parijataya Totra Vaitrika Parnaye Jnanamudraya Krishnaya Gita-mritaduhe Namaha Sarvopanishado Gavo Dukta Gopalanandanaha Partho Vatsasudhir Bhokta Duktam Gita-mritam Mahat Vasudevasudam Devam Kamsa-chanūramardhanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagadguru Bhishma Tata Jayadratha Jala Gandhara Nilotpala Shalyagrahavati Kripena Vahani Karnena Velakula Ashwathama Vikarna Ghora Makara Duryodhana Vartini Stotirna Khalu Pandavairana Saivartaka Keshavaha Parasharya Vachas Saroja Mamalam Geetartha Gantotkatam Nanakyanaka Kesaram Harikata Sambodhana Bodhitam Loke Sajjana Shatparairaharaha Vipiyamanam Mudha Yad Bharata Pankajam Kalimalam Tattvamsina Shreyase Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Lankhayati Girim Yat Kripa Tamaham Vande Ramananda Madhavam Yam Brahma Varunindra Rudra Marutaha Sunvanti Divyaistavaihi Vedai Sangapadakramopaniषदे Gayanti Yam Samagaha Jnanavastita Tadgatina Manasa Pashyanti Yam Yogino यस्यान्तं न विदुः सुरासुरगणा देवाय तस्मै नमः देवाय तस्मै नमः देवाय तस्मै नमः
Hari Om. So Bhagavan said that without Karma Yoga, it would be very difficult to attain. Ayogataha dukkham aptum. And he said, Yoga yukto nachirena adhigacchati. With yoga, one reaches or one attains without any delay. And the one devoted to Karma Yoga, who is the Yoga Yuktaha, and because the person is Yoga Yuktaha, because the person is performing Karma Yoga with a very pure mind and intellect, Vishuddhatma, and a controlled mind and intellect, Vijitatma, and with senses subdued, Jitendriyaha. That person realizes that the self in all the bodies are of the same nature as the self in his body or her body. Sarva Bhutatma Bhutatma. And because of this realization, this person, Bhagavan says, na lipyate, is not tainted, remains untouched, not smeared with kartritva or bhoktritva. And when is this person not smeared with kartritva or bhoktritva? Even when the person is performing action, kurvan napi. A karma yogi simply surrenders the sense of doership or kartritva to the Lord, to Bhagavan. And how does this person surrender? Through the attitude of service, through the attitude of offering, Ishvara Arpana, through the attitude of worship. And even as she is performing with that attitude, she experiences the results which manifest as joy and sorrow, but he remains untouched by them. Padma Patram Ivambhasa, just like the lotus petal is not touched, even though it is in contact, but it does not get damp by the water that is on it. Similarly, this person, though he experiences joy and sorrow, she does not get touched and remains untouched by them. Padma Patram Ivambhasa. It is said that the mind alone is the cause for both bondage and liberation. And both bondage and liberation are in the mind. Mana evam manushyanam karanam bandha mokshayoho. Both bondage and liberation are in a person's own mind. A mind that is absorbed in sense objects is the cause for bondage, and a mind that is detached from sense objects is the cause for liberation. Bandhaya vishayam sango muktyahi nirvishayam manaha. Therefore, Bhagavan says, Kayena manasa buddhya kevalair indriyairapi yogina karma kurvanti sangam tyaktvatma shuddhaye. The eyes see, but the person is not the seer. The ears hear, but the person is not the listener. The hands do, but the person is not the doer. The mind feels, but the person is not the feeler. The intellect has thoughts, but the person is not the thinker. The yogis perform all action merely, casually, without strain of the performance, with utter ease. And when they do like this, this results in Atma Shuddhaye, purification of body, mind, intellect, and senses. With that, we continue with verse 13. Let's go further. Sarva karmani
manasa
Sarva karmani manasa
Sanyasyaste sukham vashi
Sanyasyaste shukam vashi
Navadvare pure dehi
Navadvare pure dehi
Naiva kurvanna karayan
Naiva kurvanna karayan
Sarva karmani manasa Sanyasyaste sukham vashi नवद्वारे पुरे देहि नैव कुर्वन्न कारयन्.
Sarva karmani, all actions, whatever they may be, and however they may be conducted through the jnanendriyas, karmendriyas, the indriyas or senses, the prana, the manas, the buddhi, whichever way they may be acted upon or conducted. Manasa, by this person's undertaking or by this person's understanding, the understanding that comes after the practice of nididhyasana. And when that practice of nididhyasana happens, the person's mind is made up. And because of that, the understanding comes. So, sarva karmani manasa. All the actions that are conducted by the person with a firm mind. Sanyasya, renouncing all actions with complete mindfulness. In Karma Yoga, one gives up the doership by dedicating all actions to Bhagwan, Ishvara Arpana Buddhi. Here, one gives up by mindfully renouncing all actions. Sarva karmani manasa sanyasya. And when that person does that, aste sukham, she rests in utter ease, happily, vashi, with self-control. And how and where does this person rest? Navadwara Pure, in the city of 9 gates. Pura means that which is full, that which is brimming, a city full of inhabitants. Here Pura refers to the body. Dehi is meaning or referring to the embodied. The Deha or the body is pictured as the 9-gated city. In that body, this realized person is resting with utter ease, like a king, as the Dehi. Dehi is one who knows the Deha, who has the awareness of the Deha. Thus, the Dehi is separate from the Deha. The knower and the known. Kshetragyana iti kshetragya. We will see this much more in detail in chapter 13. Kshetragya Vibhaga Yogaha. That is chapter 13. We will see it more detail there. And what are the 9 gates? The 9 gates are the 9 apertures in the physical structure of the human body. 7 in the head and 2 in the body lower below the head. So the 2 eyes, the 2 ears, the 2 nostrils, the 1 mouth, the reproductive organ and the excretory organ. And in that city, in this Navadwara city, this person is Naiva Kurvan na Karayan. Naiva Kurvan, not doing anything, not acting. Na Karayan, not causing to act. In his presence, everything happens. But she herself does not even strain, even a little bit, or cause any strain to act. In the presence of the sun, the birds chirp, the rooster crows, people wake up, the world is active, goes about doing lots of things. Similarly, this person neither is acting nor is it causing any action. Naiva kurvan na karayan. Like a traffic policeman in a junction. Extremely busy, alert, active, controlling the movements at the junction. And when a traffic signal is installed, then what happens? Then he stands there and watches. Neither does he do anything, nor does he make the traffic do anything. In his presence, traffic flows in an orderly manner. Just like that. Going ahead, in verse 14.
न कर्तृत्वं न कर्माणि
न कर्तृत्वं न कर्माणि
लोकस्य सृजति प्रभुः
लोकस्य सृजति प्रभुः
न कर्मफलसंयोगं
न कर्मफलसंयोगं
स्वभावस्तु प्रवर्तते
स्वभावस्तु प्रवर्तते
न कर्तृत्वं न कर्माणि लोकस्य सृजति प्रभुः न कर्मफलसंयोगं स्वभावस्तु प्रवर्तते.
Prabhu. Prabhu is who? The last word of the first line, Prabhu. The Swami of the Navadwarapura, the nine-gated city. The Lord of the body. That self with which the Tattva Jnani has identified. We saw that in the last satsang also. Prakarshyena bhati iti Prabhu. One who is shining with supreme effulgence is Prabhu. That Prabhu. Like, have you seen, the depiction of saints with that halo around their head? So the light within is brighter than the light outside. Hence the halo. And this Prabhu, Bhagavan says here, this Prabhu, this realized person, this person who is the Lord or the Swami of the Navadwarapura and who is shining with effulgence, does not do three things. Prabhu or Prabhu na srijati kartitvam lokasya. So we must note that, even though Bhagavan uses only once, na kartritvam na karmani lokasya srijati Prabhu na karma phala samyogam swabhavastu pravartate. But we have to use and we have to notice that na srijati lokasya, Prabhu na srijati lokasya is common for all three. So for the first one, Prabhu na srijati kartritvam lokasya. Na srijati means does not create. Kartritvam is doership. Lokasya in the world. So the Lord of the nine-gated city does not create any cause for any action. Kartritvam. He is not the agency. Like the traffic policeman with the signal is not telling the traffic to stop or to go. He is watching. Similarly, this person is not the cause of any action. Thus, she does not become the karya. The second one is Prabhu na srijati karmani lokasya. Na srijati again does not create. Karmani, actions, lokasya in the world. The Lord does not create any action. He does not act. Thus, she does not become the karta. And the third is, Bhagavan says, Prabhu na srijati karma phala samyogam. Na srijati does not create. Samyogam. Samyogam means union. Union with what? With karma phala, the fruits of the action. The Lord does not become the bhokta or the bhogayita. In the first two cases, the Lord does not become the kartritva, and here the Lord does not become the bhoktritva. So he does not enjoy, nor does he create any cause for enjoyership. And where? In the lokasya, in the world, or for the world. Loka comes from the word look. Look means to see. In Sanskrit also, as much as it is to see in English. So that which you see is loka. Lokayate anena iti lokaha. That through which you see is also loka. Lokayate anubhayate iti lokaha. So that which you see outside, that through which is inside you, and here to see is representative of all the sense organs, is lokaha. So if this is so, then how is it that all of these actions are taking place? What is it that creates and enables action? Bhagavan says, Swabhavastu pravartate. Tu we have seen so many times in the Bhagavad Gita. Tu means but. Swabhava pravartate. But it is nature that causes to act. It is the nature of Prakriti to manifest itself in action. Now, does this then imply that the Ishvara is the doer? So if the Prabhu or this Lord of the nine-gated body, the self, is not the doer, is not the enjoyer, Does it mean that Bhagavan Ishvara is the doer? Does it mean that Bhagavan is the enjoyer? Does it mean that he causes doership? Does it mean that he causes enjoyership? Bhagavan continues.
नादत्ते कस्यचित् पापम्
Nadatte kasyachit papam
न चैव सुकृतं विभुः
na chaiva sukritam vibhuhu
अज्ञानेनावृतं ज्ञानम्
ajnanenavritam jnanam
तेन मुह्यन्ति जन्तवः
tena muhyanti jantavaha.
नादत्ते कस्यचित् पापम् न चैव सुकृतं विभुः अज्ञानेनावृतं ज्ञानम् तेन मुह्यन्ति जन्तवः.
Vibhuhu. In the last verse, he talked about the Prabhuhu. Here, Bhagavan is talking about the Vibhuhu. Vibhuhu is the Parameshwara, the all-prevailing Lord. Vividam bhavati iti Vibhuhu. One who has become everything is Vibhuhu. The Lord of the entire cosmos is Vibhuhu. And this Vibhuhu, na kasyachit, not of anyone, not of the entire world or anyone in the entire world. Papam cha sukritam. Papam, sin, demerit. Sukritam, punya, merit. Papam and punya, papa and punya, merit and demerit. Na iva addate, not even take. Ishvara does not keep count of the punya and the papa of the jiva, and does not give sukha or dukha in return. Ishvara is not actually the karma phala data. He is not a glorified account keeper. But then all these are happening. How is that? Here Bhagavan implies prakritir vastu pravartate. Earlier it was swabhavastu pravartate. Here it is prakritir vastu pravartate. It is the prakriti that causes. At the Purusha level, it is swabhava. Swabhava is what the body perceives, the mind feels, the intellect thinks. At the Ishvara level, it is Prakriti. The Sattva, Sattva as pure, the Rajas as active, and the Tamas as dull. So at the Prabhu level, it is a transactional play at the level of the Jiva. Vyavaharika Drishti. And at the Vibhu level, at the Ishvara level, it is an absolute play. Paramarthika Drishti. And Bhagavan says, Ajnanena vritam jnanam tena mukhyanti jantavaha. The jnanam, the wisdom, avritam is veiled. Remember, we saw the different kinds of veiling earlier. Veiling as if by smoke, veiling as if by dust or dirt on a mirror, smoke on a fire, dust or dirt on a mirror. And the third one that Bhagavan said was veiling as if the womb covers the fetus. And the deeper it is, the harder it is to remove. So this jnanam is veiled by what? By ignorance, ajnanam. And tena, by this, mukhyanti, are deluded the jantavaha, the human beings. By this veil of knowledge, through ignorance, human beings are deluded. There is a Tirumandaram in Tamil that uses a wooden statue of an elephant as the example. It says, Marattai maraitadu mamadayanai, Marattin maraindadu mamadayanai. The elephant covered the wood, and in the wood the elephant got covered. Similarly, Parattai maraitadu parmudal bhudam, Parattin maraindadu parmudal bhudam. So just like in a wooden elephant, a carved wooden elephant, if one sees the beauty of the elephant and the beauty of the carving in it, the person does not appear, or the carving does not appear as a log of wood to the person. But for the one who is more interested in the material, which is the wood, that person is not interested in the carving or in the elephant. Similarly, the supreme consciousness is concealed by the worldly elements. It is there, but it is concealed. But for this enlightened person, for this Prabhu, for that person sees the supreme consciousness in all the worldly elements. Whatever you see Bhagavan. Bhagavan now says that unveiling of the truth, the tattva, is a process of removal of ignorance through the dawn of knowledge, just like darkness vanishes with sunrise. That is in the next verse.
Jnanena tu tadajnanam
Jnanena tu tatjnanam
yesham nashitamatmanaha
yesham nashitamatmanaha
tesham adityavajnanam
teshamadityavajnanam
prakashayati tatparam
prakashayati tatparam
jnanena tu tadajnanam yesham nashitamatmanaha tesham adityavajnanam prakashayati tatparam.
Atmanaha ajnanam, ignorance that pertains to the self. Staying in the self, ignorance veils the self. It is within the self and it covers the self. Just like darkness in a room covers the entire room. Yesham, those whose Atmanaha ajnanam nashitam, the ignorance pertaining to the self is destroyed. And by what is this ignorance destroyed? By jnana, by knowledge. Just like light removes darkness. Once light has removed the darkness, what does it do? It reveals what was hidden. It reveals that which was hidden, that which was veiled by the darkness. Thus, adityavat, like the sun, just like the light of the sun removes darkness, and once it removes darkness, it reveals whatever was hidden by the darkness. It reveals the entire world. Tesham jnanam, their knowledge, prakashayati, reveals. And what does it reveal? Tat param, that which is supreme, the highest. So a mesmerizing story, which I want to relate now, that reveals this truth for us. So the Vedas, the Agamas, the Smritis are scriptures for knowledge for the practitioners of Sanatana Dharma. Sri Vaishnavism, in addition to these, bases its authority on the Tamil writings of the Alvars. The 12 Alvars are known to have spanned the dates from 2706 BC to 4203 AD. Poigai Alvar, Budat Alvar and Pei Alvar are the first 3 Alvars and hence are known as Mudal Alvars or the first Alvars. They were contemporaries and born on successive days. Poigai Alvar established the Paratvam of Lord Narayana as the Tattva Jnana, the supreme truth, the supremeness of Bhagavan as the supreme truth. Budat Alvar explained how Jnana blossoms into Parabhakti. And Pei Alvar demonstrated that these lead to ultimate Parama Bhakti or Sakshatkaram, which is the very realization of the Supreme Lord. Thus, the 3 Alvars, what they spoke, they represented the 3 stages of spiritual unfoldment. All the 3 were so much devoted to the Lord that they had no other thoughts. Nididhyasana, remember? Nididhyasana is when there is no other thought, just the thought that you are contemplating upon, you are meditating upon. They were not known to each other and had never met each other before, never met each other in their lives, and hence they were perfect strangers. So the night was dark and stormy in Tirukkovalur. Rain was coming down in torrents. It was a night where none would venture out, and the people were shut tight in the safety of their homes. Yet, this was the night in which the three yogis who had the Lord entrenched in their hearts, they chose to be up and about. When they reached Tirukkovalur separately, remember they never knew each other, they were strangers, they found it deserted and there was no place to rest. The first to reach was Poigai Alvar, who found a narrow passage in front of an ashram. And he lay down, prepared to spend the night among the inhospitable and very severely confined, constrained environments. Sometime later, Bhudat Alvar too discovered the same place. The occupant of the place, who was already there, he welcomed the stranger, saying that if there was enough space for one person to lie down, then two could sit there. After some time came Pei Alvar, drenched to the skin. He too was welcomed by the other two, who were already sitting there in the small space, thinking that a small space which could seat two people and where one person can lie down, three people can comfortably stand. So the three Alvars were thus standing in this constrained place in pitch darkness, sharing with one another their experiences of the Lord and his auspicious attributes, talking to each other about Bhagwan. All of a sudden, they felt a rather different feeling. They felt tightly pressed. Where they were standing comfortably in the space, now it felt as if the available space had shrunk, as if a fourth person, unknown to them, had entered the narrow passage and was crowding them. It was pitch dark and there was no way of lighting the place. Poigai Alvar hit upon the idea of lighting up a novel lamp and using the elements of nature as ingredients. He used the whole earth as the lamp, the waters from the seas and the river as oil, and the effulgent sun as the wick. He lit a glorious lamp. On his part, Bhudat Alvar lit another lamp. Here he used, while Poigai Alvar had used the elements outside, Bhudat Alvar used the elements available within oneself, and yet hardest to find in human beings as the ingredients. So he used the love, the extreme love and devotion for Emperuman, for Bhagwan, as the lamp. The uncontrollable urge in the mind to see the Lord, the mumukshutva. Remember the sadhana chatushtaya, the mumukshutva, that uncontrollable urge, that was the oil. And the constant contemplation of the Lord in the intellect, the nididhyasana, was the wick. Thus, two lamps, one made of elements from within and the other made from elements from outside, lit by the two yogis, provided extraordinary illumination, which at first removed the darkness and then revealed to the third yogi who the fourth person who had been squeezing them was. And Pei Alvar, who was the third Alvar, was able to clearly see, and he exclaimed, Tirukkandain. Tiru is Mahalakshmi. First and foremost, his eyes alighted on the glorious form of Sri, adorning the broad chest of the intruder. Sri or Mahalakshmi resides in the heart of Narayana. Kandain, he said, Tirukkandain. I see Tiru, I have the fortune to worship. And then quickly realizing that the presence of the divine consort, what did it mean? It meant that the fourth person, the intruder, who was squeezing them, was none other than the Supreme Lord Narayana. Pei Alvar's eyes rested on the divine, brilliant, glorious form of Bhagwan. And he now exclaimed, Ponmeni Kandain. Ponmeni means the divine, brilliant, glorious form. The effulgent form. And Narayana and Mahalakshmi now were together, as they are always together with Mahalakshmi in the heart of Narayana. They created a hue like the rising sun, the rising effulgent sun. And he sang out, Thigayum Arukkan Ani Niramum Kandeen. Shining like the sun, beautiful, resplendent radiance, I have the fortune to worship. Then he saw the Lord's divine discus and his cosmic conch, adorning the upper hands of Bhagwan. And this spectacular sight made him to continue singing. Sirukkilarum Punnai Kandeen, Purisangam Kai Kandeen. Seru means in the battlefield. Kilarum, bursting out. What bursts out in the battlefield from Bhagwan's hands? The Punnai, the beautiful divine disc. And I have the fortune to worship. Kandeen. Purisangam, the divine conch. Kai Kandeen, in the divine hand, I have the fortune to worship. And then he concluded, Innai Vannan Palendru. Innai Vannan Pal, in the divine form of Bhagwan, who has the complexion of the ocean that can remove one's fatigue, one who cannot be estimated, like vast, like the ocean, even vaster. Indra means now. When now I saw I could get the divine fortune to worship, when the other two alvars lighted up and made me see. The three alvars, inspired by this grand spectacle of Bhagwan, glorious form, in the midst of that small passage in front of them, right in their midst, they poured out in devotion 100 beautiful verses, each one of them. And these are the verses that served as the forerunner to the 4,000 divine verses that were composed by the 12 alvars and is called the Divya Prabandham. So Bhagwan says, Tesham Aditya Vagyanam Prakashayati Tatparam. Like the sun, their knowledge reveals the Supreme. The darkness is first banished, and it is banished by the lamps of knowledge, by the lamps made out of the inner material and the outer material, internal and external ingredients. And then in that light is revealed the divine Supreme, the highest. Thirukkandeen Ponmeni Kandeen, Thigayum Arukkan Ani Niramum Kandeen, Sirukkilarum Punnai Kandeen, Purisangam Kai Kandeen, Yen Ai Vannan Palendru. How beautiful and enchanting it is. And what happens when the Supreme is thus revealed? When Bhagwan, for the alvars, they started pouring out in terms of the 100 pasurams each. What happens? That Bhagwan continues to say in the next verse.
Tadbuddhayastadaatmanaha
Tadbuddhayattadaatmanaha
Tannishtastatparayanaha
Tannishtatatparayanaha
Gacchantya punaravrittim
Gacchantya punaravrittim
Jnana nirdhuta kalmashaha
Jnana nirdhuta kalmashaha
Tadbuddhayastadaatmanaha Tannishtastatparayanaha Gacchantya punaravrittim Jnana nirdhuta kalmashaha.
Tad buddhayaha tadatmanaha tannishtaha tatparayanaha. Tad is what? Tad is that. That tattvam, that tatparam, that supreme self, the tatparam that Bhagwan just talked about in the previous verse. That tatparam, that supreme self. Tad buddhayaha, the intellect, the buddhi of this person has become fully absorbed in that supreme self. Tadatmanaha, the mind, the manas of this person has become fully absorbed in that supreme self. With the mind and the intellect having gone deeper and deeper. Remember that gulab jamun being absorbed? So deeper and deeper, it just seeps in into the core, like the syrup seeps in into the core of the gulab jamun. Similarly, the mind and intellect has seeped in that Tat Param. The person then develops the capability to comprehend the subtlest aspects and thereby knows the self. He is able to comprehend that which is beyond the concepts of the inner and the outer. He is able to comprehend the inner, is able to comprehend the outer, and then is able to comprehend that which is beyond both the inner and the outer. The body, mind, intellect, senses, prana on the one hand, and the object world on the other hand. Like Poigai Alvar used all the object world elements, and Bhutat Alvar used all the inner elements to build those two lamps. So this person is able to comprehend all of those, and then also beyond all of those. And once this comprehension has taken place in the mind intellect, Tannishtaha, ever abiding, fully focused in that supreme. Tat Parayanaha, with that supreme as their highest goal. And when you go deeper and deeper and deeper, as their only goal. Gachanti, they reach or attain Apunara Vrittam. Apunara. Punara is again. Apunara is not again. Vrittam, the state of no return. There is no coming back to samsara. And why is that? Because this person, once having reached that state, jnana nirdhuta kalmashaha. Kalmashaha is impurities, dirt. The impurities or kalmashaha have been dispelled. Dispelled, use the, note the use of the word dispelled. Like light dispels darkness. The impurities have been dispelled, have been cleansed away, have been blasted away into smithereens. By what? By jnana, by knowledge. Dispelled is nirdhuta. Sri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa said, Brahman is experienced vaguely through discrimination, somewhat vividly through meditation, and absolutely in its original splendor in samadhi. This is termed as Videha Mukti, Apunara Vrittam, the state of no return. Vigata Deha iti Videha, without any body. Vigata Deha, without any body. But before that, only once you pass away from this world can you get to the state of no return. What about when this person is living in this world? What about when this person is a Jivan Mukta? How does this person conduct herself? That Bhagavan talks about in the next verse.
Vidya Vinaya Sampanne
Vidya Vinaya Sampanne
Brahmane Gavihastini
Brahmane Ghavihastini
Sunichaiva Shvapake cha
Shunichaiva Shvapake cha
Panditaha Samadarshinaha
Panditaha Samadarshinaha
Vidya Vinaya Sampanne Brahmane Gavihastini Shunichaiva Shvapake cha Pandita Samadarshinaha.
Panditaha, the Panditas. Pandita are who we have seen it earlier also. Those who have Panda. Panda means knowledge. Those who have knowledge. In this context, what knowledge? The knowledge of Tat. That supreme. Which means those who are Tat Buddhayaha, whose buddhi has, intellect has completely absorbed that supreme. Tadatmanaha, whose mind has completely absorbed into that supreme. And after that, Tanishta Tatparayanaha. Tanishtaha, firmly abiding in, and having that supreme as their primary goal. And once they are deep into it, once that Supreme has got absorbed into the core as their only goal. And these Pandita, the Pandits, they are Samadarshinaha. They view equally. They do not put one above the other. They do not practice discrimination in any sense. Caste, creed, color, human being, non-human being, animal, plant, whatever it may be. Now, this is a very powerful, hard-hitting statement from Bhagavan that people who discriminate should take note of, must take note of. And Bhagavan gives some examples to make the point, to drive home the point. The first example that he talks about is Vidya Vinaya Sampanne Brahmana. So the Brahmana who is endowed with Vidya Vinaya Sampanne, endowed with knowledge and humility. Not just knowledge, because the one who has knowledge can explain everything. But if the person has knowledge and is also arrogant, then the person is not a Brahmana. An essential quality of a Brahman is humility. Vidya Vinaya Sampanne. The second example he gives is Gavi. Gavi is a cow. The third example he gives is Hastini, an elephant. Then a Shuni, a dog. And then he says Cha Iva, Chaiva, and even a Shwapake. Shwapake is an outcast. So he started with Vidya Vinaya Sampanne Brahmana, the person who has knowledge and humility, and he includes a lot of elements in between and finishes with a Shwapake, an outcast, one who eats the dog, the Shuni. Now, who is an outcast? An outcast is not anybody. Is not determined by caste, creed, color, where you are born, how you are born, how do you look. No, absolutely not. A Shwapake is a person who performs that deplorable action. So in this case, the Shwapake is the person who performs the ignoble act of eating one's own companion. Who would eat a Shuni, a dog? A dog is known to be a human being's companion. So a person who does the ignoble act of eating the dog is a Shwapake. So Bhagavan has on one extreme drawn the characteristic of a impeccable person. On the other extreme has drawn the characteristic of an ignoble person. In between he has given a few examples representative of everything else. And then he says that the Panditaha is Samadarshi. He looks at all of these, whether it is the Vidya Vinaya Sampanna person, or whether it is the Shwapaka, or it is the Gavi, or it's the Hastini, or it is the Shuni, whatever it may be. This person looks at all of this equally. So how is that person able to do that? For this person, the difference is not in the tat, the truth, the fact. It is only in the tattva. Tattva is the perception. Tat is the truth, tattva is the perception. And this person's perception is the same as the truth. So when your perception becomes the same as the truth, all this discrimination vanishes. Now every object is said to have 5 aspects. 2 of them belong to the Maya or Prakriti, and 3 of them belong to the entity. They are Asti, the existence of the object, the Bhati, the presence of the object. So the existence and the presence, the Asti and the Bhati, are the 2 aspects that are of Prakriti. The other 3 are Priyam, which is its contentment, the happiness, Rupa, which is its form or appearance, and Nama, which is the name. These 3 are of the entity itself. So the Ajnani pays attention to the Nama, the Rupa, the Priya, the aspects of the entity. The Jnani's attention are entirely towards the Asti and the Bhati, the Prakriti aspects of the existence and the presence. And thus the Jnani is able to see that the self in all the bodies, whoever it may be, whoever, whether that person is the Shwapaka, whether the person is the Vidya Vinaya Sampanna, or anything in between. Whoever it may be, the nature of that entity, the individual, the existence, is similar to everything else, including her own. Sarva Bhutatma Bhutatma. Sarva Bhutatma Bhutatma. And because of this, this person is Samadarshinaha. Their darsha or their drishti is the same. How are they able to do this? We shall see that in the next satsang. Now, quickly before we conclude, see, Bhagavan has made some extremely powerful statements in this satsang, in these verses that we went through today. Okay, those which the human beings of today are not aligned at all. Hardly. We need to pay heed. We need to listen. We need to pay heed to them for our own welfare and the welfare of our future generations. And what is Bhagavan saying? First he said was, I do not keep count of your deeds and misdeeds. But what do? Upar wala dekh raha hai. He's watching you. Beware. Just sense of fear is being. Bhagavan says, I'm not keeping any count. Then he says, I do not punish or reward you. But we say, Shrap milega, punya kamaoge. That all of that is within ourselves only. That is the first part of the self that we have to understand. And then Bhagavan says that a panditaha, a knowledgeable person, is samadarshi, does not discriminate. Whereas we see discrimination all around us. A lot of it blamed upon Bhagavan only. If anybody says that, show them these verses of Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavan clearly says he does not discriminate. And he says, remove all this darkness. Remove all this ignorance, which creates darkness within you through the knowledge of the reality. And when you do that, you reveal. And like the three Alvars, you will see the Supreme. You will see Bhagavan. Let us try to follow his teachings and not be misguided in any manner. Thank you. Hari Om.
Om Asato Ma Sadgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya. Om Purnamadam Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om.
Thank you. Hari Om. So any thoughts, comments, questions? Actually, I was very fascinated by the story of the Alvars. It was absolutely wonderful. Anupama is saying, please share the, there are two chats. Vasudha is saying, lovely story of the Alvars. And please share the Alvars lyrics. It's beautiful. Yes, absolutely. It will be there as part of my notes. It's a wonderful story. Gives you goosebumps.
See, Mr. Srini, today you have touched certain portions of Nalayana Divya Prabandham to such an extent that it makes me very, very, very happy. The reason is, you called the place Tirukkovilur. This Tirukkovilur place is 120 kilometers from Chennai. It is my humble desire that you, being a generous man, call everybody and take them to Tirukkovilur, where all the three Alvars met. The meeting of the three Alvars is the holiest of holy things to happen amongst three Vaishnavas. And how nicely you have explained, even though I have been reciting this verse for the past 20 years without understanding the meaning, I am thankful to you that you have clarified my view, and I don't have any words to say thanks to you.
Thank you. Any other thoughts, questions? So some people are texting me privately that, some of the things are more difficult this time. That's the reason towards the end, I kind of summarize 3-4 points. If you go through this once more, I can promise you it will not seem that difficult. Very simple, Bhagavan is saying, one, he doesn't count our deeds and our misdeeds. He doesn't reward or punish us. And he's saying that, view every creation, every element of creation in a sama manner. Do not, discriminate. Do not make one above the other, one better than the other, one worse than the other. Don't do that. And Bhagavan is saying that, it is definitely possible to experience his glories. And for that, the first thing is Shravana, Manana, listening, questioning, discussing, arguing, Nididhyasana, contemplation, like that gulab jamun. And once that seeping, it goes deeper and deeper and deeper, then we will be able to understand the difference between the inner elements and the outer elements, and what is beyond the inner and the outer elements. And that is the story of the Alvars, where they were able to create light, create a lamp. If modern science can create electricity, I'm sure that also could have happened. Using the elements of within, using the elements of the outside. And in that, they could see the fourth intruder or the stranger, Bhagavan, who had come. So it is a beautiful story.
As one of the senior most member of your satsang, I am aged 70. Out of my experience, I would like to share one thing, that we should never be afraid of God. God, after all, whatever we are doing is as per His Vishwati, which is as per Prarabdha Karma. So even if you are doing something wrong, take the Lord along with you. Suppose you know that you are doing something wrong, take the Lord along with you. The Lord will ensure that you won't do this thing wrong. See, nobody can in this world boast that I am the purest, I am the greatest, I am the wisest. No, it's all God's grace. It's just a chance factor that anugraha of God is there. Anugraha. God's anugraham is there. Yes will become no, no will become yes. Many a time, for the time being, we feel that God is not kind to us. But in the long run, it will be proved that because of the kind God's gesture alone, we are enjoying our life.
Thank you. One suggestion on chat from OP sir is, he says, before we conclude the satsang, should we recite all the verses together? That's a nice suggestion. If everybody agrees, we can do that before we start the Q&A from next time onwards. I like that suggestion. We normally cover anywhere between 4 to 8 or sometimes 10 verses. It will take 2-3 minutes to recite all of them. So obviously Sarika will lead that, and we can recite. That's a very good suggestion. Thank you, sir. We will do that. Before we further open for questions, maybe we can do this time right away. We can do a quick recitation this time. Shubha says, yes, I would like that. Thank you. That's a very good suggestion. I like that too. Yeah. Sarika, if you can lead, please.
So verses 13 to 18 of chapter
Yes.
5. Sarva karmani manasa.
Sarva karmani manasa.
Sanyasyaste sukham vashi.
Sanyasyaste sukham vashi.
Navadvare pure dehi.
Navadvare pure dehi.
Naiva kurvanna karayan.
Naiva kurvanna karayan.
Na kartritvam na karmani.
Na kartritvam na karmani.
Lokasya srijati prabhuhu.
Lokasya srijati prabhuhu.
न कर्मफलसंयोगम्
न कर्मफलसंयोगम्
स्वभावस्तु प्रवर्तते
स्वभावस्तु प्रवर्तते
नादत्ते कस्यचित् पापम्
नादत्ते कस्यचित् पापम्
न चैव सुकृतं विभुः
न चैव सुकृतं विभुः
अज्ञानेनावृतं ज्ञानम्
अज्ञानेनावृतं ज्ञानम्
तेन मुह्यन्ति जन्तवः
तेन मुह्यन्ति जन्तवः
ज्ञानेन तु तदज्ञानम्
ज्ञानेन तु ततज्ज्ञानम्
येषां नाशितमात्मनः
येषां नाशितमात्मनः
तेषाम् आदित्यवज्ञानम्
तेषाम् आदित्यवज्ञानम्
प्रकाशयति तत्परम्
प्रकाशयति तत्परम्
तद्बुद्ध्यास्तदत्मानः
तद्बुद्ध्या तदत्मानः
तानिष्ठास्तत्परायणाः
अनिष्टा तत्परायणाः
गच्छन्त्य पुनरावृत्तिम्
गच्छन्त्यः पुनरावृत्तिम्
ज्ञाननिर्धूतकल्मषाः
ज्ञाननिर्धूतकल्मषाः
विद्याविनयसम्पन्ने
विद्याविनयसम्पन्ने
ब्राह्मणे गविहस्तिनि
ब्राह्मणे गविहस्तिनि
सुनि चैव श्वपाके च
शुनि चैव श्वपाके च
पण्डिता समदर्शिनः
पण्डिता समदर्शिनः. Thank you. Any other thoughts, questions, comments?
Just one point on Srini on Sir's. The sir told about Thirukoilur. I guess it's nearby a town called Kallakurichi, if I'm not wrong. A marathon happens there. The local village people organize a marathon. So that's how I recall that. Some Ulla Galantha Perumal, that's how they say that temple. It's a Perumal temple there. And one among the 108 Divya Desams. So that's all from me.
That's what I was thinking that Mr. Srinivasan is going to start naming all the 108 Divya Desams.
Yeah, you are 100% correct. It is one of the 108 Divya Desams. Their Lord is in the form of, Ulaha Alanda Perumal. Ulaha Alanda Perumal. Ulaha means world. Alakadu means measurement. Actually, you must be knowing that in Kerala, there was a king called Mahabali.
Yeah.
Mahabali, Lord Mahavishnu in Vamana Avatara measured 3 feet of land. One is the entire earth, Mother Earth, the other is the sky, and the third, there was no place to keep, so Mahabali Raja gave his head. That form is called Vishwarupa Vamana. God is in the form of Vamana, but Vamana in a Vishwarupa form. So, even a position where the foot is so high, he is standing on one feet and the other feet is just touching his head, something like, not touching his head, nearly up to the height of his head. That's the beautiful darshan, and it is worth seeing. 120 kilometers from Chennai, and on the way you can see Tiruvahindapuram, another 108 Divya, and then Kanchipuram, where you can as many as 14 Divya. See, 108 Divya to see is not very difficult. It is very easy. It is very interesting. But it has to be, one cannot go to a place and see 1 or 2 places like a picnic. For example, you come to Delhi, you can see Mathura, Govardhan, and in Lucknow there is a place called Naimisaranya. Only 3 you can see. Then if you want to go further, you have to go to Badrinath. There we have 3. One is Devaprayag, other is Joshimath, and the same is Badrinath. Then the most difficult one is Muktinath, which is there in Nepal. but that is also, you can cover it as a picnic. Then coming back to Tanjavur, you can see 40 Divya Desam. And another 20 Divya Desam in Tirunelveli. And another 15 Divya Desam in Kerala. Unfortunately, Karnataka doesn't have a single Divya Desam. And Andhra Pradesh has 2 Divya Desam, that is Tirupati and Ahobilam. And Gujarat has 1 Divya Desam, that is Dwaraka.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you. So you ran a marathon there, Kushagra.
Yeah, I did a run there, Srini, and sir was talking about Kanjivaram, right? Kanjipuram. So I had gone to a temple called Ekambareshwara. That is one of the 5 Panchabhutas of Shiva. So there only I got some Vaishnava friends, and they made me travel to some Divya Deshams because I cannot read Tamil, so I was not able. But I remember there's a temple in Kanjivaram which has a lizard. They see that if 2 lizards are spotted together, some legend like that. So they made me travel to that temple, and that is also one of the Divya Desham. So I remember something there.
Correct. That's Varadraja Perumal. Yeah. Upasana is saying something. If there is no account of your good deeds and bad deeds, then what is the motivation for one to be a good human being? Okay, that one should be a karma yogi, doing good deeds with Ishvara Arpana Buddhi. But for a thief or a bad human being, what is the incentive to become a good human being? So Upasana is basically asking, what is if there is no account of good deeds and bad deeds, what is the incentive to become, good? So see, I think Bhagavan is just saying that Bhagavan, talking of himself, when he is saying, I do not keep an account of your good deeds and bad deeds. That is what Bhagavan is saying. Okay, he's not asking you not to keep an account of your own good deeds and bad deeds. So yes, if you have that realization, and what Srinivasanji said a few minutes ago, and I have said that earlier in one of the earlier satsang, or maybe more than once, Ishvara Arpana Buddhi, whatever we do, we dedicate it to the Lord. Whatever it may be, good deed, bad deed, any deed. And we had a long debate about, the Kasai and all of that also, right? So it's contextual. It is, even today Bhagavan says, right, that where we are is not in our hands. But what we do once we are where we are, that is up to us. And if that we do, whatever we do with the attitude of Ishvara Arpana, then over a period of time, it has an impact. Over a period of time, the karma becomes karma yoga because of that Ishvara Arpana Buddhi. And when karma becomes karma yoga, at that time, the good deeds will start dominating the quote-unquote bad deeds. That is the motivation. The motivation, so to answer your question specifically, what is the motivation? The motivation is to dedicate it to the Lord, to Bhagavan. And for people who debate with me about the concept of Lord, God, Bhagavan, I say, fine, dedicate it to a higher cause. That is my favorite example of Roger Federer. Dedicate your game to the tournament. Then your game will be okay. If you are going to worry about the game, then you are probably going to lose the set. If you're going to worry about the set, you're probably going to lose the match. Then where is the tournament? It's gone. It's not even in context. It is not even relevant. But if you dedicate everything, every shot to the tournament, then automatically the shots will become more and more beautiful. And that is when you see Federer, it's like poetry. The tennis game is like poetry. And when you dedicate, one more thing happens. You start becoming humble. You look at these accomplished people. Look at Federer. Every pour out of it oozes humility. Today, Bhagavan talks about that, right? Not only is he a knowledgeable person, not only is he an expert on tennis, he is extremely humble, a true sage, a true yogi. So that will happen. Then the third thing that will happen is that whatever happens, whether you win, whether you lose, it is all the same. Win-lose is the same. Victory-defeat is the same. Tall, short is the same. Dark, fair is the same. Woman, man is the same. Animal, human being is the same. Samadarshi. Everything becomes the same. So starting with Ishvara Arpana Buddhi, everything else will fall in line. That is the motivation to do it.
Hi, Srini. I have a question here. We spoke about good deeds and bad deeds. And so what I would like to ask is it not good to be God-fearing? There are so many people who are God-fearing. You also spoke about paap and punya. ये करोगे तो पाप है, वो करोगे तो पुण्य मिलेगा. So I feel sometimes such a thought would also stop you from doing a bad deed. The vice versa is also possible. So what are your thoughts on this?
I would say, fine, agree, please do so. But when you do so, dedicate it to the Lord. And when you do exactly what you just said and dedicate it to the Lord, it will undergo a transformation. That transformation is because you are doing it for the love of God. Because you are doing that, then it will not become pap. Then it will not become, the fear. It will become love for God. You can't dedicate to fear. You can dedicate only to love. So the fear of that God will transform into love for that God. So even the initial fear, even that initial fear of, oh my God, मुझे श्राप मिल जाएगा, even that, बोलो भगवान आपके दया से आपको समर्पण है वो श्राप, जो भी मैं कर रहा हूँ, जो भी मेरा श्राप है, then it will automatically transform into love. Because dedication is not possible for what you fear. Devotion is not possible for what you fear. It doesn't happen. You actually run away. Whereas when you are devoted, when you're dedicated, when you dedicate, when you devote, that is with love. So we can start that way, but it will get transformed.
Another question. One's perception becoming the truth. You did mention this in one of the explanations. Now, what I'd like to ask is, truth has many versions. Each one has his or her version of truth. So how do you define it? How do you define truth? The ultimate truth?
See, the ultimate truth, the definition of the ultimate truth has to be defined by that person. So you define your ultimate truth. And when you do this in this manner, then you will yourself discover that it is merging with the actual real truth. If it is not merging with the actual real truth, after having pursued it for 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years in life, then one must take a relook that whether I have been doing it in the right manner, whether it is honestly the truth or not for myself. When you do that, and when you are able to devote it to the Lord, and when you are able to honestly, sincerely devote it to the higher sense of ideal, the higher ideal, then it will become the common truth. It will transform into the common truth.
Srini, I have an excellent story which will take about 2 minutes. See, there was a guru and he had a chela, and a small dog was sitting besides both of them. The chela asks the guru, sir, the tip of your dadi is divine, or the tip of this dog's tail is divine? Again, I am repeating, एक कुत्ते का पूंछ पवित्र है या आपकी दाढ़ी पवित्र है, दाढ़ी की नोक पवित्र है? Then the guru says, come tomorrow, come tomorrow. Every day the chela asks the same question, the guru says, come tomorrow. Some 27 years have passed. Then the guru says, come tomorrow. In the meantime, the dog has vanished, the guru is getting older day by day, the chela himself is becoming about 50 years old. Then the guru tells his disciple, please come tomorrow, I'll tell you. Then he says, it is my dadi's, my beard's tip that is more pavitra and not kutta's. The disciple gets so angry, he says, you took 27 years to tell this? To which the guru replies, I am very clearly seeing my end coming towards very near to me as I am 97 years old. You know, the brain is such that today it will think something, tomorrow it will think something. To remain steadfast, one has to be in yoga. To be in yoga, yoga and in deep devotion. It's not ordinary thing. Only now I realize that the tip of my beard is pavitra. So I'm telling you. So what the lady asked the question that what is truth or how we perceive truth and all is a genuine problem which any householder or any individual or any person faces. It is a lovely example. See, we can all hide, oh, my great, oh, my ye, hu, my oh, hu. But after what we know what we are, where we do mistakes, where we are selfish, where we don't care for others. So like the old sadhu, we have to practice meditation. And finally, we should have the courage to say, the tip of my dadi is pavitra.
So what I would like to add is, see, how is it that your truth will become the common truth? It will become the common truth because, see, when you say your truth, my truth, please note that, and I'm going to take the liberty here because Aditi is a very good friend and my teacher. 2-3 times, like Mr. Srinivasan just said, it is common. We can choose to hide, but the fact is that all of us know the deficiencies. And I appreciate the fact that Aditi brings it out, in the open, right? So my truth, when I say my, that's selfish, no? Aham, mama. We began the satsang addressing these two concepts of aham and mama. So how do you remove this aham and mama? You remove the aham and mama by Ishvara Arpana. That bigger thing. You call it God, you call it Ishvara, you call it higher ideal, you call it purpose, you call it Khuda, you call it Bhagwan, you call it whatever you want, you call it Jesus, whatever you call, make that higher ideal. When it becomes the higher ideal, then suddenly it is not aham and mama, it is something else. And when you devote to something which is bigger than yourself, then the first thing that happens is your sense of I-ness, that comes down. The ego comes down, that feeling of my perspective, the feeling of my truth, that goes away. And when that goes away, the common truth remains. So Ishvara Arpana Buddhi, that is the first step. When we do that, this aspect goes away. So it took 97 years for the yogi to realize that, this aham mama is my tip, the tip of my beard.
Thank you, Srini. Thank you, Uncle.
So after 97 years also, he was still at the my beard.
Srini, I'd like to add one thing. I guess it will relate to both Upasana's question as well as Aditi's. So basically, I was reading an article there. People know about Maoists because it's very prevalent in my area in Jharkhand and Bengal. So Maoists are people who have their rights and they take up arms to fight against the government. And there was this guy called Chakradhar Mahato. This is somewhere in 2009. So Chakradhar Mahato had a meeting with Sri Ravi Shankar and he decides to give up the arms. And the reasoning was that according to me and my fraternity, the truth was what we were seeing as a fight. But with the intervention of this person, there was a wider truth to it and definitely they gave up arms. So it is like that the truth we see and the truth that a teacher shows, there's a difference in that. So thank you for that.
Any other thought? Thank you all. Hari Om. We'll see you next Saturday. Expect to complete chapter 5.